Today we are talking about Katie Locke. She was a sweet, spirited girl with her whole future ahead. She took every safety precaution possible the evening she lost her life. She let her crew know her destination. She sent them a picture of him. She updated them constantly. She played it safe, but all those safeguards meant nothing since the institutions meant to keep her safe had broken down way before she matched with him. Hello everyone, I am Laura, and thanks for tuning in to British Crimes. This episode dives into a situation that reveals some seriously disturbing cracks in how the UK handles public safety. These mistakes led to a heartbreaking outcome that can never be undone. Let us get into the details of what happened to Katie Locke. Want to hear the grimmest tales from across the pond? Check out our latest release, Unreal True Crime British Edition. It features 35 intense homicide investigations that will have you hooked. You can grab the paperback or ebook on Amazon right now. Alternatively, you can download the PDF directly from our site. We put the links down in the show notes. Make sure you grab one. Pick yours up today. All right, let us get back to the story. At 23, Katie Locke was the type of individual that society desperately needs more of. She taught history and politics over at Cardinal Pole Catholic School located in Hackney, East London. It was a position she truly valued, arriving daily with passion and drive to help her pupils. Being an educator was not just a paycheck for her, it was her true path. Old co-workers called her welcoming, reliable, and entirely devoted to the kids she instructed. Her motivation did not stop when the bell rang. She was a certified kayaking coach, loved athletics, and constantly volunteered for charities close to her heart. Back in 2012, she was a volunteer during the London Olympics, joining thousands of others to ensure that summer was memorable globally. Folks who crossed paths with her back then recall her beaming face and excitement. They also mention how she made everybody feel at home. She resided with her mom and dad as the baby of 3 girls in a very tight family. Her pals said she was the type to bring sunshine into any place she entered. She did not do it by showing off or acting loud, but just by being her real, honest self. Katie did not have any rivals or a sketchy past. She was just a regular girl trying to make it in a major metropolis. She did what tons of millennials do, like hopping on dating sites to find a connection. She set up an account on Plenty of Fish, and in early December 2015, she connected with a guy named Carl Langdell. To her and random acquaintances, Carl seemed like a high-achieving pro. He claimed to be an attorney running his own law practice. He spoke well. He had charisma. He really knew how to sell an image. However, Carl's background told a completely contradictory story. In 2009, a full 6 years prior to meeting Katie, he got a warning from cops for attacking his partner. It was on file. They wrote it down. Yet, similar to other red flags in stories like this, it basically got ignored. By March 2015, only 9 months prior to the killing, his actions got way more intense. He vowed to slit his partner's sister's throat. After that, he menaced a mental health nurse. He was not being subtle or unclear. He was making direct, specific promises to commit deadly violence. Authorities held him for a psych evaluation, and during that time, doctors noted something terrifying in his records. It was a detail that should have altered the entire course of events. Doctors observed that Carl got aroused by fantasies of murdering females. They logged it. Everyone was aware. Experts officially labeled him a major danger to women. In April 2015, he admitted guilt to the threat charges. The judge let him out on bond with strict rules, like wearing an ankle monitor. Legal and medical authorities thought they had a handle on him. They were dead wrong. From August to September 2015, his caseworkers suggested locking him up again for psychiatric care. He was not getting any better. He was spiraling. In that time frame, he issued another distinct threat. He claimed he would murder somebody upon release. Nobody filed that comment as an actual criminal offense. They let him leave the psychiatric facility on September 20th, 2015. It was December 2nd, 2015, barely a dozen days before his path crossed with Katie Locks when the judge handed down a sentence to Carl Langdell for his past crimes. The court gave him a 9-month jail term, but they suspended it for a period of 2 years, adding a requirement for psychiatric care. He left the courtroom that day with his freedom fully intact. Less than 2 weeks later, he logged on to Plenty of Fish, setting up a profile that completely hid the red flags, marking him as a serious predator. His file was full of disturbing evaluations, detailed fantasies about murdering women, and a history of getting more aggressive. But that data never made it across the lines connecting the police, the health service, and the probation officers. Nobody had the whole story. Not a single person triggered the safety measures that could have kept him away from innocent people. The authorities held every clue they needed. They just failed to put the pieces together. In the first week of December 2015, Katie Locke connected with Langdell on that dating app. He claimed he was an attorney. He curated an image of a smart, grounded, and intriguing professional. Her online searches came up empty, as no public record hinted at the dark secrets buried in confidential medical and criminal reports. Katie took the standard precautions any rational person takes before a blind date. She sent his picture to her inner circle and made certain her loved ones knew exactly where she was headed and who she was seeing. This is the exact playbook that every safety article and concerned parent teaches young women to stick to. She ticked every box. She wasn't gullible. She wasn't careless. She was smart, ready, and kept in close touch with her support network. On the night of December 23rd, 2015, she dressed up and made her way to Shoreditch to meet Langdell at a spot called Traffic Bar. At some point that night, she texted her pals to let them know things were looking good. Investigators reconstructed the rest of the night using security tapes, receipts, and testimony given later in court. Inside the bar, Langdell started downing drinks at an alarming rate. Before long, he was completely wasted, barely able to stand or speak coherently. Katie had to step up and handle the mess. She hailed a cab. She covered the 65-pound ride. After he got sick in the back seat, she even shelled out 80 pounds for the cleanup fee. She was looking after a guy she had literally just met, a stranger she barely knew, simply because that was the kind of compassionate person Katie Locke was. She was the type to help out when she didn't have to, even when leaving him there would have been totally justified. But she stuck by his side. The driver took him away from the city to a hotel in Hertfordshire. It was 3:30 in the morning on Christmas Eve when they finally got to the front desk. Staff working the late shift remembered seeing her practically carrying him through the lobby to keep him from falling over. Fear wasn't on her radar. She just thought she was aiding a date who had gone a little too hard. She was likely already scripting the amusing anecdote she'd share with her family over holiday dinner. Tragically, that conversation would never happen. The horror Langdell inflicted on her during the pre-dawn hours of December 24th, 2015, matched the dark urges he had confessed to his doctors. He dreamed it, he said it out loud, he got flagged for it, and the system still let him go. Inside that room, Langdell choked the life out of Katie. The assault was long and brutal. Prosecutors later proved the crime was driven by lust. After she was gone, he violated her remains. He snapped pictures that he tried to erase, but tech experts managed to retrieve them anyway. His next move revealed just how heartless and empty he truly was inside. He hung a sign on the handle to keep maids out. He asked the front desk for extra time. Wrapping her in sheets, he wheeled her out to the trash area on a cart before returning to bed for a nap. When he woke up, he grabbed a morning meal. He settled his bill like a normal guest. He went about his day without a care in the world, ignoring the fact that he had just extinguished a bright life and left her freezing in the bushes. Shockingly, he dialed up a Tinder date and confessed to the murder right over the phone. That same day, Katie missed a scheduled house-sitting gig, which set off instant alarm bells for her circle. Being a flake wasn't her style. Her absence meant trouble. Her friends started blowing up her phone. Someone finally picked up. No words came through. Just the sound of heavy, dragging breaths echoed from the other end. Then came a sound so faint it was almost missed. A whispered name, Katie. Her circle sensed the truth immediately. They lacked the specifics. None of them had a clue regarding her location or the events that transpired. Yet they understood it with that instinct that hits before any verbal confirmation, the way dread lands long before the actual news does. They messaged Carl Langdell through social media. His reply was cool, practically brushing them off. He claimed she had hopped in a cab and left. He insinuated there was no cause for alarm. She went back to her place, except she never made it back to her place. Katie's dad, who cherished his baby girl more than anything, drove straight to Carl Langdell's residence, demanding an explanation. Upon getting there, Langdell's mom opened the door and informed him that Carl wasn't in. He was out walking their dog. Langdell finally picked up the call. The sentence he uttered next contained a horror that Katie's dad never dreamed would enter his ears. It was a phrase no mother or father should ever have to endure. I am a monster. I laid her down on the earth. Authorities were notified immediately. Officers located Carl Langdell over at Lee Valley Park. He directed them to the exact spot where he had abandoned Katie's remains. Police rushed to Theobald's Park Hotel, and on Christmas Eve, as households everywhere gathered by trees and warm fires, they discovered her. Katie Locke was just 23, working as a history teacher and kayak coach, an Olympic volunteer, and the baby of 3 girls. They located her by a trash bin on the property, bundled in sheets and thrown away like garbage. On December 25th, Carl Langdell faced formal murder charges. Once investigators sat him down for the interrogation, he wouldn't say a single word in response to their inquiries. As he sat in jail pending trial, Carl Langdell proved that his brutal streak wasn't just isolated to the night he took Katie's life. During May of 2016 at HMP Bedford, he violently attacked a guard. He got a conviction for inflicting grievous bodily harm. By the time his homicide case reached the courtroom in June of 2016, Langdell entered a guilty plea. He didn't drag it out with denials. The mountain of proof against him was simply too massive to ignore. The file contained pictures he snapped, forensic traces from the room, and that chilling admission he made to Katie's dad on the call. The judge listened to details regarding the sexual motive. They heard what he did to her after death and how he transported her corpse. Testimony confirmed the evaluation that he remained a severe and constant danger to any woman he might encounter. Carl Langdell received a life sentence mandating a minimum stretch of 26 years behind bars before any chance of parole. The presiding judge stated explicitly that he was among the most perilous men to ever stand in that dock. Here was a guy who warned the authorities exactly who he was, yet the institutions completely failed to keep him in check. Following the conviction, an official inquiry launched to figure out how Carl Langdell was ever permitted to walk the streets. He could browse dating sites, pick up women at bars, and book hotels, even though he was flagged as a high-risk predator with open murder fantasies. The conclusions were devastating. Communication had completely broken down between law enforcement, the health department, and the probation office. Every single department possessed a different fragment of Langdell's background. Nobody saw the whole landscape. There wasn't one central file available to everyone that documented the true extent of the danger he posed. The specific safety protocol they should have activated is known as the Multi-Agency Public Protection Arrangements, or MAPA. That framework, built specifically to track dangerous people living among us, was never even switched on. The records clearly listed his dark sexual urges regarding the murder of women. They also documented his direct threats and the fact that his actions were getting progressively worse. Yet, none of that data was gathered or analyzed in a manner that would have put the necessary chains on his liberty. The final report admitted that the system messed up. These were genuine, massive, and fatal mistakes. Simultaneously, the investigation ruled that Carl Langdell was the only one directly responsible for his heinous actions. Bureaucratic gaps might have set the stage for this tragedy, but the decision to carry it out belonged to him alone. However, grieving relatives in these situations are frequently stuck with a question that formal reports never seem to satisfy. If the safety net had functioned exactly the way it was supposed to, would Katie still be breathing today? The conclusion in this specific instance feels pretty hard to avoid. To comprehend how Carl Langdell was out scrolling through a dating app just 12 days after sentencing, you have to grasp a basic fact. It comes down to how risk assessment operates in the United Kingdom and exactly where it falls apart. MAPA, those multi-agency public protection arrangements, was created exactly for nightmares like this one. It represents a collaborative system designed to force cops, parole officers, and mental health providers to work together on handling criminals who are actual threats to society. When the gears mesh, the machine runs smoothly. The fatal flaw, however, is that a human being has to manually flip the switch. You need a person navigating 3 separate bureaucracies with incompatible databases and distinct internal politics to see the whole landscape and decide a suspect warrants tagging, tracking, and confinement. For Langdell, that critical step was never taken. It didn't happen following the assault in 2009, the death threats in 2015, or the logs of his twisted fantasies. Even his 4th direct warning declaring he would murder somebody upon release was ignored and never even filed as an official offense. Every department operated with blinders on, yet those silos were exactly the issue. Law enforcement had the files on his physical attacks. The doctors were aware of his violent urges, and the parole office held the records on his suspended jail time, but no single person held all the cards. No mandate existed compelling anyone to make a call and stitch these fragmented warnings into one clear portrait of a dangerous man. We have seen this specific breakdown countless times before. Identical glitches departments, hoarding data, failing to talk, and ignoring protocols show up in investigations all over Britain and the rest of the world. While the faces and victims differ, the post-mortem reports always seem to land on the exact same findings. Officials draft suggestions, time passes, and then a new hearing starts because the system crashed in the exact same way. The Langdell tragedy stings worse than most because the red flags were glaringly bright. Nothing about this guy was hidden or hard to read. This wasn't a matter of falling through a loophole in a complicated maze. He was openly, vocally, and unmistakably a threat. Yet nobody lifted a finger to keep him away from the very demographic he had told doctors he dreamed of slaughtering. A much tougher question lingers, one that the official inquiry didn't and maybe couldn't completely answer. How much blame falls on us collectively for building structures that permit these disasters on a loop? We study the failures, nod at the lessons, and then go right back to making the same old mistakes. Personal guilt, as the report correctly stated, belongs entirely to the man who committed the crime. However, organizational liability, the type that rewrites rulebooks and forces departments to swap data, is a different beast. Getting separate entities to act like a single machine instead of rival offices is sluggish, difficult, and frankly, often unfinished. Katie Locke's murder happened right as finding love on the internet was shedding its outlier status. It had become a standard ritual for millions seeking romance, friendship, or just a quick hookup. Sites such as Plenty of Fish and Tinder were already household names by that point. By 2015, the embarrassment once associated with digital matchmaking had evaporated. It was simply modern dating. Still, these apps ran and largely still run without any tools to identify or flag predators lurking in the user base. Neither the United Kingdom nor most other nations legally compel these companies to cross-reference sex offender registries. They are not required to screen their subscriber lists against records of known violent criminals. A guy could walk out of court with probation for threatening murder on a Friday and be swiping right by the next Monday. Absolutely no safety net exists to stop that exact scenario from playing out. I am not saying software developers share the same guilt as a killer like Langdell for his horrific actions. But we need to look at the massive disconnect between their safe space marketing and the flimsy security measures they actually employ. Following the tragedy, a wave of activism swept through the UK, demanding change. These movements fought for stricter screening protocols on apps, specifically targeting users with a rap sheet. By 2021, the online safety bill started its journey through the legislative chambers. It eventually passes a historic law, dumping a whole new set of obligations onto tech companies. Yet the issue of forcing apps to run background checks is still a hot debate with no clear resolution. Tech giants claim that rolling out such features would be a coding nightmare and a legal minefield. Victim advocates counter that the technical difficulty defense is mostly just a convenient cop-out. One fact remains undeniable. Carl Langdell had no business scrolling through dating profiles in December of 2015. Whether the courts, the psychiatric wards, or the app developers should have been the ones to block him is up for discussion. Or perhaps the real conversation is about how all three failed to work in tandem. What we cannot accept is the idea that no one had the duty to intervene. Katie Locke paid the ultimate price for that systemic void. It was a price she never should have been forced to pay. Over the next few years, the people closest to Katie made sure her legacy never faded. Stories flooded in from students, co-workers, fellow paddlers, and the Olympic volunteers she served with. Even folks who met her for 5 minutes never forgot her. That is the sign of a truly rare and gentle soul. Her school hosted memorials while the whole town mourned. Eventually, as towns tend to do, they kept on bearing that weight in the quiet, unseen way sorrow operates when it is forced to live right alongside the daily grind. Meanwhile, Carl Langdell sat in his cell. On February 11th, 2021, just past 12:05 in the morning, guards discovered him with a wound he inflicted on himself. They rushed him to the medical center, but he was pronounced dead at 1:47 a.m. His passing sparked a mix of messy emotions, which is par for the course in tragedies like this. Some believe the scales were never balanced, that 26 years was too short, and that he stole time Katie never got to enjoy. Others just feel empty, having given up hope long ago that the legal system could ever offer anything looking like real closure. The only thing that isn't complex is the magnitude of what was taken away. Katie Locke was only 23. She was an educator, an athlete, a helper, a beloved daughter, a sister, and a loyal friend who was always cautious. She was smart and responsible, letting folks know her plans, and she had every right to make it back safe. Katie's story isn't merely a tale of one man's brutality, it's a narrative about the safety nets we construct and how they collapse when agencies don't talk to each other. It highlights the failure to link the clues and the refusal to handle a known threat with the urgency it demands. Carl Langdell admitted exactly who he was to his therapist and even confessed it to the psychiatric nurse. He admitted it to a date on Tinder later on. He told Katie's dad over the phone, and he pleaded guilty before the judge. He wasn't some enigma or hidden shadow. Everyone saw him, yet Katie Locke is still gone. The bare minimum we can offer is to speak her name and honor the person she was before that dark night changed everything. We must make sure she isn't remembered just as a victim in a horror flick, but as a vibrant human being who meant the world to everyone around her. Her name was Katie Locke, and she was just 23 years old. She was owed so much more by a society that had every tool needed to keep her safe. If this video resonated with you, go ahead and share it. Drop your thoughts in the comments section, and if you haven't done so yet, hit subscribe so you catch the next deep dive. Take care of yourselves out there. Some folks out there seem totally average. They offer a friendly grin. They're polite enough to hold the elevator. They know the perfect things to say to charm you. Yet underneath that disguise, deep in their stare, hides a darkness nobody sees coming until the clock runs out.